Welcome to Around the ASUN. Around the ASUN is the newest podcast for the newest conference in FCS football. Now let's send it to your hosts, Will Seiler and Brandon Owens. Welcome back, FCS Fans Nation, to another episode of Around the ASUN. And Brandon, I know how you're doing. I know what you're struggling with a little bit, but go ahead and tell us what you've been up to the past week.
I have like 2 papers I gotta write that are due in the coming month. So yeah, and then we'll get into the other stuff later in this episode.
Oh yeah, we definitely will. If you're listening to this, it's going to be kind of a different episode. We're going to try and not necessarily fly through the recap, but try and get through it pretty quickly because we do want to talk some conference realignment news and get some of that here and get a little speculation on here in whatever episode of Around the ASUN this is. So we're going to go ahead and jump right on in to recapping week 9. So UCA traveled to Jacksonville and got the win over Jacksonville State, 38-14. Austin Peay almost pulled it off. I was almost wrong. I picked UT Martin, and I got it right. They Austin Peay lost 17-16.
I was pissed.
I bet. You and Rev were all high on the Govs, but it did not work out. So Kennesaw State overcame a lot of injury adversity and knocked off Gardner-Webb 34-30. And then Eastern Kentucky did what they were supposed to do, 42-10 over Lamar. Not a whole lot to talk about there. Eastern Kentucky, like I said, they did what they were supposed to do. They scored all 42 points the first half. Parker McKinney, the offensive player of the week for the conference. And then Kennesaw, man, did you see they had 12 starters out?
No, but I was keeping up with the score. I was like, what is happening? Like, this is not what KSU has done, this entire season. So, since Reinhardt.
That's kind of how I was. I was like, man, Kennesaw, they're not playing well. And then I found out that they had 12 starters out. I was like, oh, well, that'll do it to you. Injury bug is a tough thing to overcome. But anytime you can, you're playing with 12 dudes that don't normally start. So that's pretty good for Kennesaw. And then Austin Peay in a super tight one with UT Martin.
Led the entire game till the last 30 seconds.
It was a heck of a game, heck of a comeback for UT Martin. I don't necessarily think they're a top 10 team, but why would you not rank them there right now? They haven't lost a game yet, or I guess one game, but it was an FBS game. So as long as they keep winning, they're going to keep moving on up. So props to the Skyhawks. And then obviously we talked about UCA and Jacksonville State a lot last week, previewing that one. It was a fun one. It was cold. It was rainy. I know you were there. I was watching on TV. I was just hoping that you wouldn't text me any random updates because I was on ESPN Plus, which is, just a little bit delayed. And so I was just praying. I was like, oh, Brandon, don't text me if anything big happens. But nothing.
I wanted to, but it wasn't necessarily about the game.
There wasn't a whole lot of it wasn't really a tight game.
No.
It was pretty much from the start. There was a couple times that Jacksonville State kind of fought back into it, but every time Jacksonville State landed a punch, UCA found a way to respond. They got a couple turnovers early. They got 2 defensive touchdowns for UCA. That was big time by the defense. 2 pick sixes, and then offense. I'd say the offense has played pretty evenly, wouldn't you?
For this past game?
Yeah.
And yeah, ish. UCA's was obviously better.
Stat-wise, it was dead even. I think we had 380, and you guys had 380, which it was a lot of rushing attack because of the rain. But Braylon Smith, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say it. the one thing y'all exposed us on was our short passes. For some reason, we have not gotten out of zone coverage
Yeah.
and went to man or even soft zone. Like, everybody's picking up on that, and they're executing short passes against us, getting first downs, moving the ball down the field, and I'm just not used to it. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way.
That's fair. I thought the quarterback play was a big difference. I thought Zarek Cooper missed a lot of passes that he should have hit. And then Braylon Smith was wheeling and dealing. I thought he was, even in the rain. The commentators had a lot to say about that. They were talking about how he was hitting long balls, short balls, everything, just like it was, playing inside a dome. So props to Braylon. Thought Zarek missed quite a few passes. I don't know if it was because the ball was wet or what, but he missed some
No,
short ones that,
he's just so inconsistent. I
I
don't know
mean,
why. Like, he'll have a couple back to back that are like perfect throws, and then he just starts throwing either over their head or at their feet. And I mean, there's nothing you can do as a wide receiver except try to go after it. 9 times out of 10, you're going to miss it. So,
he didn't have a whole lot of time to throw the football. I will say that.
our offensive line sucks.
We got a lot of pressure. I think we sacked you guys like 4 times, something like that. I mean, it was a pretty good game for the UCA defensive line. So shout out to those guys, especially my dog Logan Jessup. I know he listens to us every week. So give a shout out to number 91. He's a man child. But we're gonna go ahead and jump in, look at some rankings, and then we'll jump right into week 10.
Week 10. We are
That's
3 weeks
crazy.
away from playoffs.
That's insane. We're gonna be still doing this show after our teams are done playing. It's gonna be, very depressing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can have like a collab with FCS Fans Nation every week.
We'll just jump in, and there won't be a whole lot to talk about. But we'll do a little segment or something. Going on. Let's talk a little bit of national rankings in the Stats FCS Top 25. We did have 4 teams from the AQ7/ASUN that were ranked. Sam Houston holds on number 1. I think this week they were actually unanimous. There might have been 2 or 3 votes for North Dakota State, but it was almost unanimous. Kennesaw State holding on strong at number 12, and then Eastern Kentucky stays in the poll, although they didn't move up or anything, probably because, you're playing Lamar, but they hold on at 25. And then Stephen F. Austin still receiving votes. And then if you roll over to the coaches poll, you still have UCA receiving votes as well this week. So getting some national prominence moving on with the ASUN WAC Challenge, getting some teams with some national spotlight, which is always good to see. But is this the first week that Jacksonville State has not been receiving any votes whatsoever?
Yes.
And Brandon is like, finally.
Yes, and I'm so ready to just move on to basketball. I'm so ready to move on to ASUN basketball.
Oh, God. I don't know if I'll even know enough about basketball to contribute, but
Oh, no, we're going to do it on Cocky Nation.
oh, good. Thank God, because I don't know much about basketball. But going on to the AQ7 Power Poll, like I say every week, this is the only one that matters. Flashed up on the screen. No different from last week. Sam Houston holds on at number 1. Eastern solidifies their spot at 2. UCA stays at 3. And then you can see the rest. SFA, Jacksonville State, Abilene, and Lamar. Not too much to talk about there. That was my exact poll. Was it yours?
Yeah, I almost put JSU at 6, though.
Oh, we'll find out this week, I guess. We will find out who the 5 is and who the 6 is. Man, it's like things are actually starting to shake out a little bit. I feel like early in the year we were like, oh, we're going to figure out what it is this week, and never did. And then now here we are. It's like we can actually tell who the good teams are.
Part of it is because JSU messed everything up.
I mean, yeah. But it was like every week we were like, oh, man, we'll start to figure it out this week. And then some random crap would happen. And here we are. It's like we actually have figured some stuff out. We're figuring out the order of the teams. And I think we're figuring out who's interchangeable with who. And so I'll tell you what, I'll be looking forward to that Eastern Kentucky and Jacksonville State game, because I don't necessarily think Eastern Kentucky is like, the bomb diggity or anything. But we'll find out, I guess. So, and we'll see if Jacksonville State can keep everybody, invested here for the last part of the season.
Probably not.
No faith whatsoever from the the Gamecock himself. Moving on here into week 10. As we move right along, we've got Kennesaw and Robert Morris, North Alabama and Monmouth, Jacksonville State and Abilene Christian, as I said earlier, Austin P and Eastern Illinois, and Eastern Kentucky at SFA. And you forgot to put the UCA game on the schedule. What the frick?
I'm sorry.
We are playing the powerhouse Texas Wesleyan. Here for
Oh.
I know here for homecoming in Conway. I better knock on wood or something, and we're gonna get beat by an NAIA school. So yeah, let's just jump right in. We could talk about some games, get some predictions, and we'll move right along because I know we're wanting to talk some conference realignment,
Yes,
or at
we have a
least I
lot
am.
to say. We have a lot to say.
So we'll start with Kennesaw at Robert Morris. I think Kennesaw should get some of their injuries back on the field this week. I don't think they were all like season ending or anything. So hopefully the Owls can, I don't want to say get back on track because they won, but hopefully they can, win a little more convincingly and even make a surge at that 8 spot maybe for the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think all of their injuries are coming back though, so
No.
definitely at least a 10-point victory, which doesn't look good against Robert Morris, but I mean, when you have injuries, what can you do? But yeah, I have the Owls winning.
Yeah, I hope they can get healthy here quickly because I would really like to see them make a push at that 8 seed. I don't think it's necessarily likely, but I do think it's possible. So that'd be nice to see. Moving on down, North Alabama and Monmouth. So we see North Alabama take a stab at, I don't want to say the Big South favorites, but I mean they kind of were early in the year. So what do you think about the Lions?
As much as I would love to see the Lions go into New Jersey and pick up a win against Monmouth, I don't think it's going to happen. So I have Monmouth winning pretty convincingly.
As I said, I guess like a month ago, I am rolling with the Lions every week from here on out, unless I just really don't think they can win. And you know what? I think they can. They let's see, they have a bye week last week,
Yeah.
so 2 weeks to prepare for Monmouth. Monmouth is good, but I don't think they're, the 85 Bears or anything. So I'm gonna give it to the Lions this week. We'll see if they can roll in and get a victory, but I think they will. Moving on down the line, Jacksonville State, Abilene Christian in a battle for the 5 spot in the AQ7 Power Poll.
I'm actually picking JSU, but I'm picking them in a close one.
Man, if I had one of those sound effect buttons right now, I'd be checking the woo, the cheering noise, because you're on board with your team again.
For the first time in like a couple weeks.
Yeah, I don't know. This one's interesting because Abilene has not looked impressive as of late. And I think Jacksonville State, I think John, you know how it is when people start talking about, like, just from my point of view in a locker room, when you're starting to get some national attention, like Jacksonville State has the past 24 hours.
For the second time this season.
Yeah, but like for the past, in the last 24 hours, the spotlight's kind of been on Jacksonville State. So you start to, carry yourself with a little bit more swagger. And so I think Jacksonville State rebounds and plays well, but at the same time, I don't think Abilene Christian's a bad team. And I think Abilene Christian can expose some of the weaknesses from Jacksonville State, like you were saying, those short little passes. We watched Abilene do that to us up and down the field for the first like quarter and a half there in Abilene. So this one it's going to be interesting, but Abilene having to go all the way from West Texas to Jacksonville, Alabama, that's a long trip. Although Abilene flies everywhere for the most part. I mean, private school, got that money. So they're
Must be
going to,
nice.
you're telling me, that trip out to Abilene, Texas is no joke on a bus. Oh God. We drove out there one time, and I guess it was my sophomore year, last game of the year, and we didn't get there until like 8 at night the night before the game because we'd had some bus issues. Like one of the buses like had a wreck. It wasn't their fault. Somebody cut them off on an exit and hit the front of the bus, and it was a total fiasco. But whatever. No, so bus trips can make it hard, but Abilene, they'll fly to Jacksonville, so I don't see it being an issue for them. And just to play devil's advocate, I'm going with Abilene. I think
Okay.
that I think offensively they've got a shot. They played last game was Stephen F. Austin, and it was 41-27 in favor of Lumberjacks. Trey Self played out of his mind. He had like 5 touchdowns, 350 passing yards. He's slowly starting to solidify himself as a really good player in the FCS. But man, yeah, I'm gonna roll with the Wildcats in a close one.
I can see it going either way.
I'm gonna say like less than 10 points, like one score or like one score and a 2-point conversion.
Oh, I got JSU by 4.
Okay. So it's kind of like whatever. It's
yeah,
like
this is a pick 'em. To me, this is a pick 'em.
So I'm gonna go with Abilene. I think they get one of those wins that not necessarily defines their season, but that they can hang their hat on going into the offseason. And then moving on down the line, Austin Peay in Eastern Illinois. Do we have to talk about this one?
No, because Eastern Illinois sucks. The Govs are gonna win easily.
They're pretty bad, but then Austin Peay just always does what I don't expect them to do, unfortunately. You think?
Sadly.
Am I overthinking it?
No, not really.
They're unpredictable, but that's college football.
They're like JSU.
A little bit, except not complete. It's not like, oh, we're going to beat Florida State this week, and then we're going to get blown out by, Kennesaw the next week. A Florida State team that almost beat Clemson.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was like, okay.
No, it's wild. But, man, imagine if Jacksonville State did not have the Florida State win to hang their hat on for this year.
Oh, we would have been like the Central Arkansas game would not have even mattered for us.
No, I mean if you didn't have the Florida State win to hang your hat on, you'd be like sitting back here at 2-6.
2-6.
You'd be sitting at 2-6, going, man, what has this season been? And with
fired John Gross.
Yeah, you're probably right. Florida State's gonna keep him around, dude. But
and I hate it. I hate it so much.
Hey, it is what it is. But yeah, I'm gonna say Governors get a pretty convincing win over Eastern Illinois there at home at the Fort.
Yeah.
Eastern Kentucky and SFA, man, this one.
This might as well be our game of the week.
I mean, I think it is. I'm gonna have to agree with you. It's a pick'em game, unless the UCA Texas Wesleyan game is your game of the week. Because I mean, it's not every day you get the powerhouse of Texas Wesleyan to come to your place.
I know.
I've had way too much fun with that this week. Their logo is not even on the ESPN app for anybody that wants to know. Which it kind of sucks. I wish we weren't playing them because we're kind of like out of playoff contention right now because 7-4 with a non-counter game like kind of screws us. But it is what it is. When we joined the ASUN, we lost the Southland Conference game, and nobody has an open date on their schedule for the next year that they're really looking to fill at that point.
Right.
And so I wish we had gotten like a Southland school to play us. Because, all those Southland schools lost games too. I wish we'd gotten a game against somebody from the Southland, so at least it would have been a counting game, so that if we got to 7-4, at least we're getting some looks.
Or even from the OVC.
Right. I mean, because all those conferences are having to play each other twice right now to fill up their schedule. And so, like, only one of those games that they're playing is counting. And so if we could get, like, one of the OVC schools with a bye week this week, or even a duplicate game this week to come to Conway, or even us go there, that would have been awesome. But I mean, it's homecoming. You get a game you should win. It just kind of sucks because that made that Missouri State loss kind of important. But sorry, I'll get off my soapbox and talk about EKU and SFA here. Man, this is going to be a good one. I think that this could be. These are the only two teams, in my opinion. I'm not saying that the committee sees it this way, but in my opinion, these are the only two teams still competing for
an at-large.
Yeah, an at-large out of the AQ7 to give us a 2-bid league. So, it'll be interesting because if one of these teams wins and then wins out, you're looking at them possibly getting it. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this game is huge when it comes to playoff at larges. I mean, I listened to the latest episode of FCS Fans Nation, and this was one of the games this week that everybody circled. Like, this game is super important. I mean, both of these teams, whoever wins, it would be their most likely their first time going to the playoffs in what 5+ years.
I think, let's see.
Because
Yeah, it
EKU was like
definitely.
14 or 15.
I know or not Sam Houston, sorry. Stephen F. Austin. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know why I went blank. Um, they went and played Northern Iowa in 2015, maybe. It's been over 5 years. So yeah,
Okay.
it'd be a first trip in a while.
So I mean, this there's a lot on this game. You're gonna, in my opinion, this is gonna be one of the more entertaining matchups in the FCS this weekend.
Oh yeah. You're getting two quarterbacks that have played pretty well. Parker McKinney, reigning ASUN Offensive Player of the week, and then Trey Self, who was the reigning WAC Offensive Player of the week. So yeah, this is gonna be I think kind of I want to say a barn burner, but not necessarily like super high scoring. So I guess not really a barn burner at all. But I think this will be like a one score ball game. But I do think Eastern Kentucky, although albeit not the more talented team, in my opinion, I think SFA's got more talent, more size, speed, strength on their team. I think Eastern Kentucky plays really crisp, clean football, and they're playing very confident right now. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Anytime the way they beat Lamar, which granted it's
It's
been
Lamar.
but the way they beat Lamar was how Alabama beats FCS teams when they go to Bryant-Denny. We
Right.
score 42 points in the first half. We let them score one touchdown, and then the score doesn't change for the second half because we're in that much control. And that's how I see it because, everybody's like, oh, Mercer only lost to Alabama by 35. And it was like, well, it was 42-7 at halftime, and it stayed 42-7 for the whole game. So um, I'm gonna roll with Eastern Kentucky because I also think they're the best chance for us to
Mm-hmm.
get a second team into the playoff or into the playoffs. Um, I think SFA is still kind of a question mark, even if they do what they need to do. So I'm going to roll with Eastern Kentucky. I think they're playing the best right now. I think they've got the more crisp football team.
Yeah, I'm gonna go EKU. In this matchup, that, like you said, they're just playing clean, disciplined football. And while SFA does have the more talented team, I think EKU is actually going to get it done. I'm going to say by 7 or 8 points.
I hope so. This is one of those games where I actually do have somebody I'm cheering for, and that is the Colonels. So go Eastern Kentucky. And
Yes.
then last game of the week, the game of the week.
Do we
UCA.
really need to pick a winner?
No, we don't have to pick a winner, but it is homecoming. I'll tell you what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to possibly Darius Hale, freshman running back, going over 1,000 yards on the season, which would be, I don't know when the last time somebody ran for 1,000 in the season was. It was probably Carlos Blackman, maybe. But then at that point, he kind of had a tandem in the backfield that kept him from getting as many yards as he should have. But Darius is sitting right now at like 763 with 3 games left. He rushed for over 100 at Jacksonville State, rushed for 253 at Lamar. So I'm looking forward, hopefully, as a freshman, for him going over 1,000 yards. That dude's got a bright future ahead of him. And then the guy he's splitting reps with right now, Kylan James, also a true freshman. Looking forward to maybe seeing him get a little more time as we move into the second half. Hopefully, throw in some second and third string guys in there just to get some experience. So that should be something that UCA gets done this weekend, but I mean, I'll probably it kills me to be talking about UCA football this way, to be like, "Oh, man, looking forward to putting the third stringers in," because, you should never look past an opponent, but I don't know. This week is a little different, so I don't think we'll have any trouble with with Texas Wesleyan. Do you know what their mascot is?
The last I looked at the logo, it looked like some sort of ram.
Are you sure that wasn't Angelo State?
No, I'm fairly certain that was Texas Wesleyan.
Oh, I think you're right. I don't know. I'm looking it up right now. They are, I guess, the Rams. So is Angelo State, though. That's why I was thinking about that. Nice. Good for you, knowing all the mascots. We said we were going to make that a segment, but we never did because you
We
never got any
need
of them
to
wrong.
at the end of the season.
You never got any of them wrong. So,
Yeah, I ain't got nothing to say. Bears by 90.
Yeah, man, I hope so. I sure hope so. The size difference is just insane. But you'll find this interesting. So they play in Conway this week, and then next week they come back to Arkansas to play Lyon College, which is an NAI team up in Batesville, Arkansas. Who, fun fact, does not have their own stadium. They play at Batesville High School.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool deal. So they're playing in Arkansas 2 weeks in a row. So maybe they'll just stay here. Maybe who knows?
Use UCA as a practice facility.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, they can sleep in one of the empty dorms. I think we'll be fine this week. But man, let's just move right along into the hot topic of the week, which is not the playoff situation, because we've talked about that. I think we pretty much know what's gonna transpire. Sam Houston's gonna get a seed, probably a top 2 seed, and then we'll have the EKU and SFA. They'll shake it out this week, but conference realignment, and it is a
It's
hot
confusing.
topic. The dominoes that were set off several, at this point, a couple of months ago, 4 months ago, by University of Oklahoma and the University of Texas, have trickled all the way down into Huntsville, Texas, and into Jacksonville, Alabama. As last night, Brett McMurphy broke the news that the Conference USA was likely adding Jacksonville State and Sam Houston to the Conference USA to replace the 9 schools that have been.
9.
Is it 9 that have been
9.
poached? And that is assuming that Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee go ahead and make it official that they are headed to the MAC. So
They're gonna go to the MAC.
yeah, I don't think you're wrong. But yeah, it has trickled all the way down, and it's kind of a 50-50 split as to whether fans are excited about this or not. There's an account on Twitter called Sports of Sam Houston State, and they put a Twitter poll out, and it was like, "Are you excited? Do you think we should move to the Conference USA?" And I voted in it just for fun.
I did too.
I put yes, and
I put no.
Well, again, 50-50 split. There was like 120 votes, and it was split down the middle, 60-60. And so this is, most FCS programs would be thrilled to get an invitation to the dance that is the Football Bowl subdivision. But for whatever reason, Jacksonville State, Sam Houston fans do not seem to be as thrilled as most fan bases you would think would be. So I'm going to give the floor to you. You can, just pour your heart out, because I don't know, maybe Greg Seitz watches this podcast.
If he does, I would have heard something by now because of some of the stuff I've said on here.
You're probably right. But yeah, man, the floor is yours. Tell me how you feel. Tell me what you think, and I'll come on after you.
Well, so there's 2 different kinds of mindsets. There's the mindset of a logical way of thinking, which is how I look at it. Like, how is it going to benefit us with our current financial status versus us moving forward with this. Like, are we going to break even or are we going to lose money? And then you have the people that are like, oh, we're going to get so much money from this. But then you also dive into the travel logistics of it. Like, you are having not just Jacksonville, not just Jacksonville State, but you're having Liberty, who is going to be traveling all the way to New Mexico and vice versa. How does that make sense? Especially with JSU, who apparently we have an $18 million athletic budget. I don't know how, but we have an $18 million athletic budget. But really, when you're traveling at least once every year for every sport to go all the way out to El Paso, Texas and New Mexico, who nobody over here is going to care about. Like, how does it make sense? You're not going to gain anything from this move. Like, I can understand if Middle Tennessee State and Western Kentucky were staying, but like, they're gone. They're leaving. Bye. So I don't see a point in us making this move. And I know we're gonna dive a little further into it. So I'll save what I want to say. I'll save what I want to say for once we've discussed it a little more.
So if this does happen, this will, assuming that the two current members go ahead and make the move to the MAC, the Conference USA, as we know, it's gone. I mean, 9 schools gone, 1 going to the Sun Belt, Southern Miss, 6 going to the American, and apparently 2 going to the MAC. What would the conference look like at this point? It'd be New Mexico State, Liberty, Louisiana Tech, Sam Houston, Jacksonville State, and then what are the other 2 that I'm missing?
UTEP.
Yeah, UTEP and UTSA. No, UTSA went to the
No.
American. I don't know who else I'm missing.
FIU.
Yes, Florida International.
Which
So
is
yeah,
another thing. Like, you have Miami traveling all the way to New Mexico. How does that make sense? Please
here's the
explain it to me.
well, and travel. You hear Chris Hammond say it all the time. Travel's not as big of a deal as you like for football, it makes more sense to do it because you only make 1 trip a week. It's for the other sports that you really start to see it kind of take a toll because you have to travel your basketball team twice a week, your baseball team, once a week, but for a longer period of time. So I don't know that travel is necessarily a huge deal, but it
Apparently, it
is.
was for JSU when we left the OVC for the ASUN.
I mean, yeah, but that's not the only realignment news, though. We're gonna tie this back to the Conference USA in a minute, but McNeese and UIW today both were reported to be joining the WAC, which McNeese we had kind of already talked about being a prime candidate because I mean they're 20 minutes from Lamar. It's super easy drive for Lamar, and that's a big that's a Division I school. Like I know we all are, but that's a Division I school. Like you go on campus and you're like, oh, I'm at a big school. Facilities are nice. And then UIW, obviously you get the San Antonio market for the WAC, adding them. Private school, got a lot of money, not going to have any issues traveling whatsoever. I will say this, it's kind of ironic. When the Texas 4 that joined the WAC left the Southland, which is, if you're not familiar, Sam Houston, SFA, Lamar, and Abilene, they just crapped all over UIW and talked about the Southland like it's a dying conference. They added Abilene Christian and Incarnate Word, and this has been coming for a long time. Us getting out of it. Well, look now, they're back in a conference with Incarnate Word. They're just the little baby brother that just keeps biting at your ankles all the time. It's like, hey, we're coming with you. So I just think that's kind of ironic, but that leaves the Southland in a very compromised position.
Well, that leaves them with 4 schools.
That leaves them with Southeastern Louisiana, Northwestern, Nichols,
and Houston
and
Baptist.
yes, and Houston Baptist. So, whew, That's
which
tough.
there's already reports of SLU going to the ASUN.
Yeah, Southeastern Louisiana was mentioned back in the day about maybe joining the ASUN, and now if I'm really any school in the Southland, I'm trying to get out. Which I know you're bringing Texas A&M Commerce up, which I feel bad for those guys because here they are making the jump to Division One with apparently no plan in place now. It's like, hey, we're joining a conference. We've got a few good members, and it's like, oh crap, we're about to be,
Which,
one of
if the Southland goes away, you could possibly like, I'm sure the Southland will probably stay around for Olympic sports, because
possibly.
they'll find teams to come in.
Hmm.
But if nobody else joins the Southland after these teams leave, you could
Yeah.
very well see Commerce be knocking on the door of the Missouri Valley Football Conference and be like, "Hey, can you help us out a little bit here?"
Well, and here's the deal. If they're knocking on the door of other conferences, why not go talk to the WAC? I mean, it just looks like conference realignment right now is just trying to find somewhere that's stable enough to get you into your actual final move. And I don't know if Jacksonville State knew that they were going to be in the FBS landscape like conversation when they joined the ASUN. Maybe not. Maybe they were just saying, "Hey, let's get to the ASUN," so it's like a stable, like stepping stone before we go somewhere else. I know that the whole conference was joined with the idea of the conference moving up as a whole, but apparently some schools just don't care about handshakes anymore. um, sorry. Anyway, um,
No, you know my stance. You know I'm pissed about this.
I know. But just to play devil's advocate, man, like why wouldn't you want your school to move up and offer a better experience for college athletes?
Well, if you've paid attention to some students, alumni, fans on Twitter, and even on Facebook, most of us have said, if we can't compete in the ASUN, what makes people think that we can compete at the FBS level?
Not competing in the ASUN for 1 year is not that big of a deal. Like somebody said that the other day because everybody contemplates like, oh, could our school move up? Like we were talking about UCA, and somebody was like, man, we're 4-4 right now, and I was like, it's 1 year. It's 1 year, and we're 2 plays away from being 6-2 or 7-1. So whatever. I think that's a stupid argument. Not gonna for UCA, but it's 1 year in the ASUN that you haven't done well. I mean, you're 3-5, but I mean, it's one time. It's not a look at the past decade. You've been a perennial FCS power, and you've competed with perennial FCS powers. Like, yeah, you've usually ended in some sort of, pretty harsh loss. But I mean, you made a national championship game. Like, you're not. The program is there, and that's like when the Sun Belt went and got teams. They went and got teams that had competed at the national stage, and in my opinion, that's what Jacksonville State is.
Then your view on the national stage and my view on the national stage is very different.
And don't get me wrong, I know you're not winning a national championship, but there's been 2 teams winning, or I guess 3 now. Sorry, Sam Houston. 3 teams in the last, 12 years win a national championship. Like, unless you're one of those 3, then what, you're not ready to go?
I mean, I'm a student here, so a lot of people like to a lot of older people like to say you're not thinking logically about this. Well, I can throw the card that you're not even involved with the university anymore. You're not a current student here. You don't know what goes on.
Yeah. I just I don't know. I'm a proponent of we want our school to be big time, and we want our school to offer more opportunities to the athletes because this is an athletic. Now I know this affects the whole institution, but at the heart of it, it's an athletics decision. And like I was talking to Coach Brown last night in Conway, and the UCA football coach, and we were talking about why would you not want your school to move up the ladder? And because you're going to offer students a better your athletes a better opportunity, go play more big time places. It's a bigger experience. Now I know you're probably look at App State. They made the move, they've done well, but they're not competing for national championships, and they're probably not going to in our lifetime. But now I'm just playing devil's advocate because my school's not moving up, so I I can do that. I can kind of pick your brain a little bit, but I don't necessarily. I see where you're coming from, and I see why people would not want to move up. I absolutely do, but I also see it from the standpoint of I want my school to, you know, if they're invited to the dance, why not go?
Well, I mean, also, like, you have to look at the process of this. We just moved to a conference that's more regionalized. We have natural rivalries, and I know your stance on that, but you also know where I'm coming from on that. It generates more revenue if we have close rivals. But the fact of the matter is we just moved to the ASUN. And
I
with the
mean,
process that you have to go through in order to have another conference move is you have to go through your board of regents, board of trustees, whatever.
mhm.
I can guarantee you, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But any logical person, any smart person would look at this proposal and look at Greg Seitz and John Gross and the entire athletic department and say, okay, y'all are most definitely crazy. Something is wrong up there in your head. You just moved conferences. What makes you think you can handle a move to the FBS, which is one more expensive? And with the travel, you're not going to even break even. Like, what's the point in even going to this dying conference when you are in a stable conference right now?
Now that's where I do concur. Um, the Conference USA is very unstable as a conference right now, and I don't know that I would want to move up into what quite honestly is a dumpster fire.
Yes.
Um, so I do see where you're coming from there, but if it was an invite to the Sun Belt, if the Sun Belt said, "Hey, Jacksonville State, we want you to come," you know, be
Oh, most definitely, I'd be happy.
okay. So it's not the
But I
FBS
would
move.
still have the same issues. Like, would I be more happy with the Sun Belt? Yes, I would. But the fact of the matter still remains. Like, how are we going to afford this? Like, that's my thing, and I know I know where you're going with this. I know that Coastal Carolina was in the same position as Jacksonville State is right now, and look at what they've done. Maybe we can do the same thing, but right now, I just don't think it's a smart move.
I uh, I am not in athletic administration, so I have no idea if it's a smart move. But teams make it happen, programs make it happen. Unless you don't, unless you're UMass and you just don't make it happen. But we we'll see. But I do think this affects a lot more than just those schools because with the two Southland schools leaving to go to the WAC, I think Southeastern Louisiana is a shoe in to go to the ASUN, and be
What
the
about Nichols?
we'll see. You
I
start
mean,
to get
Nichols is an old Gulf South Conference foe of UNA, so
yeah.
they'd be getting matchup back.
We I don't know. There's something about when you look at the blueprint of the ASUN schools right now, and like kind of what the athletic departments look like, what the universities look like. I feel like Nichols would kind of be an odd man out. But maybe not. Maybe I mean that'd be definitely somebody you could add that would give some familiarity to UCA, Nichols, and Southeastern. So that'd be cool. I would like that, but we'll see. I do think Southeastern's pretty much a shoe in though. I think that we'll be hearing before long that Southeastern and the ASUN are in talks. Hopefully, but I do think we will be. And then
Oh, and apparently Missouri State said no to the Conference USA. I found that out today.
who actually reported that?
I have no idea.
Because I mean maybe, but I don't know. That just seems like to straight up tell them no, which I know schools do that. Like they turn down invites all the time. James
Which
Madison,
apparently Liberty said no to Conference USA, and look what's happening now.
yeah, they're like, oh, just kidding, we'll come. I kind of wonder if maybe Liberty was like invited to come to the conference and then said, okay, who else is coming? And the Conference USA was like, well, we don't know yet, and they were like, figure it out, and then we'll talk. And so who knows? Not me. Um, but it's a wild time, and to think that all this was set off by freaking Texas and Oklahoma. Like it's such a small domino that actually was a huge domino.
Yeah, and there's even more rumors. Like after this was like nobody saw this coming. No, I mean nobody
I
saw
mean,
this coming.
people had reported that Sam Houston was kinda on the radar, um, which whatever. I will say this, I think Jacksonville State is in a much better place to move up than Sam Houston is, and when it didn't surprise me seeing Jacksonville State mentioned in that tweet when I saw Brett McMurphy's tweet. I was like, "Okay, that makes sense." I kinda figured that they would be, in the conversation, but I kinda thought Sam Houston was more one of those, like, they had some recent success and big name, but nobody would really, like, invest in to move up, but here they are, like, they're actually gonna join the Conference USA, so that kinda blows my mind, but, um
Yeah, and what's crazy to think is literally like 12 hours after that tweet, everybody wakes up the next morning. There's more rumors. There are more rumors, and it's basically waiting on seeing what the MAC does with Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee State.
which, like you said, I think that's pretty much a done deal. Um,
Which,
no,
if
it's
it
a
is a done deal, the two schools that Conference USA is like rumored at looking at
yeah,
definitely will probably be your next announcement for Conference USA.
we will see. It is a wild time to be alive, uh, especially in the world of college football, so I love the rumors. I think it's fun. I am kinda ready for it to, like, calm down a little bit because
Oh my god, I'm so confused. Like my brain has ever since Austin P made the move, that's when all of this went downhill with
but,
the
I mean, it's not
FBS,
because
with the FBS.
yeah, and it's not because Austin P made the move, like, it's just
Right.
kinda timeline.
But
Uh,
yeah, that's literally what it is. Like the timeline of the FBS, that's when it started going downhill. Right after
it's
Austin
wild.
P announced they were going to the ASUN.
If it is
And my
indeed
brain
true
hurts.
if it is true that Jacksonville State's headed out, then Southeastern if you're watching this, Ted Gumbart, go get, uh go get Southeastern because 'cause they're a
Please, and have mercy on our
very good fit.
souls. Please have mercy on our souls. Don't be
Yeah,
mad at us.
this podcast may not exist anymore after, Jacksonville State leaves. It's
Which
gonna be
was
crazy.
that's
Had
the
a
one thing I'm most sad about because we got so many fault like this just took off.
we had a good thing going here, Brandon, and you had to go ruin it. But,
I didn't
no.
go ruin it. Blame freaking Greg Seitz for that.
No, it was I don't know. It's a good time to speculate. So we'll bring you more news as we get it. I don't think we're the first in line to get information, but as we get it, we will put it on the podcast. So I'm sure by next week we'll have some more answers as far as
Yeah,
if this
maybe
is
more answers on what we might do with this podcast.
yeah, we'll have some answers on whether or not this whole thing has legs or not, whether Jacksonville State's actually leaving. So
Maybe get more people on, do away with this name, and do a Conference USA podcast.
it ain't gonna be me. I ain't touching the Conference USA with a 10-foot pole.
Nah, don't be so
But
sure.
anyway, well, we appreciate you watching and listening to Around the ASUN this week. It was fun. We post every week, so if this is your first time listening, make sure you find us next week. Thanks to FCS Fans Nation for letting us be a part of the FCS Fans Nation network. A lot of good content coming from the YouTube channel, which is where you're watching this right now. So check it out. There's a lot of good podcasts there on the YouTube channel. So everybody have a great week 10. It's crazy that we've come this far. So we will we'll be back next week to recap week 10 and preview week 11. So have a great week, everybody, and enjoy the football this weekend.